So, today we're here to talk to you about what's your favorite thing in the garden?
Carrots. And cucumbers.
Oh yes, and cucumbers. We're not talking about cucumbers. We're only talking about carrots because cucumbers are a long ways off. But what we're planning to do is kind of go through the step and some of the, I guess, rationale of what we're about to do here in preparation for saving carrot seeds. Carrots are a biannual, means that the plant grows for the first year but doesn't produce any seeds, but then produces its seeds in the second year. So the carrot produces a nice big carrot, the part we like to eat, in the first year. But then the second year, if it keeps growing, it will produce a flower and seeds. So this is kind of a little bit of a rundown of how to go about this. Carrots are a bit tricky. They're not tricky in so much as to get them to go to seed. They're tricky because if you want to save seeds and you like a particular variety, you need to observe some pretty big separation distances. The first disclaimer here is this is the first time that we've actually sort of purposely tried to get carrots to go to seed. We've had it happen before, but the biggest problem with carrots, they're actually very easy to collect seeds from. The hard part with carrots, and what some people don't know, is they cross extremely readily because they're usually insect pollinated and the insects are travelers. So that's also not just restricted to varieties. So if you have multiple carrot varieties, being a biannual, they go to flower in the same year, they will cross, most likely. But you also have to be aware, if you live in most parts of North America and Europe and possibly other parts of the world, I'm not sure on the exact range expansion or distribution of this particular species, but there's a wildflower called Queen Anne's lace. And basically Queen Anne's lace is the wild carrot, and it's the exact same species as every domestic carrot. So if you have Queen Anne's lace growing nearby, it will also cross with your carrots. So the separation distance that, and I'm kind of quoting the Seed Savers Exchange here, just as one source, for carrots is 800 feet to a half a mile. And that's not just from other carrot varieties, that's also from Queen Anne's lace. That's kind of a big deal. So what we're trying this year is to get our carrots to go to flower maybe a little bit ahead of the Queen Anne's lace, because Queen Anne's lace is outside, laying dormant, and it'll of course start to grow once the normal yearly cycle kicks up. Now, a book that I've had for years is this is a Canadian book. It was very cheap. I don't even know if it's still in print, but it has here's the carrot right here, and it does the same thing. It kind of goes through some things to consider, and sometimes it's nice to have a hard copy. The internet is great, but a hard copy can come in really handy if you for some reason can't get on the internet. So what we're going to do is plant some of these dragon carrot roots, because that's the variety we really like that variety. We really want to try to get seeds from. We're going to plant them in pots so that we can move them to the greenhouse a little bit early to get some growth, so that they're a little bit ahead of the flowering of the Queen Anne's lace. All right, so here's our two big pots, and these are actually just pots that we, I think 2 of our crabapple trees came in. What we've basically done is this is kind of a mix of just normal potting soil and some sand to give it some decent drainage. It's already a little bit moist, so it's not too bad. We're going to plant the carrot roots that we're going to select from our batch of dragon carrots here in this, and then we're going to take these downstairs and store them in the basement for sort of the remainder of the winter. So here is the carrots that we have to deal with. Now you can see they're already starting to sprout a bit. They've been in the basement. It's cool down there, but for the most part they've stayed pretty good. Like, they're still quite firm. They haven't gone soft or whatever, and that's actually one thing we do like about the dragon carrot. Like, we've essentially not stored these properly, and they've still maintained a relatively decent condition to this point. So we're going to go through, pick out some of the best tubers here in a second, and then we're going to get them planted. All right, so we're down here. We've got some containers, And we're just going to quickly go through and look at these and kind of pick out some of the biggest ones that are still in good shape. Unfortunately, yes, this one was our biggest dragon carrot by far, and it has not stayed in good shape. It's starting to rot in the top, so this will be an eater. See, that's a pretty good one. Now, ideally, we would have stored these in some kind of soil, etc., to keep them from drying out. I guess we lucked out a little bit by having them in the tote, but next year we'll be more prepared.
So we got 20 carrots that we're going to plant. These ones are the maybes. We got 10 of these ones and 10 of these ones.
So the bigger ones are sort of the better ones because they're grown into be a bigger carrot. But we are going to, just because we didn't have a lot to select from, we are going to use some of these little guys because we kind of looked at ones that had good form. It's not ideal, but this is an experiment, so we're going to see how it goes. We're ready to try this here. Basically, I'm going to start in the center, so we've got 5 of the bigger ones and 5 of the smaller ones. So I'm just going to kind of make a bit of a hole and pick one of my nicer ones here. The nice thing about carrots is you don't want them packed, but you kind of want it a little bit firm around them. They are all planted, so we've got 10 in each pot. I don't know, it may be a little bit crowded, but some of them aren't very big, so we're just going to kind of see what happens. These are going to go back downstairs where it's cool, and I'll probably cover, even though they've started to grow a bit, I will probably cover them over with something just to sort of keep them from trying to grow too much because it's a little early. Some other things we haven't mentioned yet is, depending on where you live, domestic carrot can just be left in the ground. It's touch and go. I imagine we could probably get away with it here, but it does recommend, and I'm reading notes because I don't have all this memorized, it does recommend here that if you get below 15 degrees Fahrenheit or -9 Celsius, sort of during the winter months, that it's recommended to bring them in because they may or may not survive. Obviously the wild Queen Anne's lace survives no problem here, so it may depend a bit on the carrot variety. We've not tried that. So under normal circumstances, you may not plant them like this right away. You could store these as you would other root crops. So carrot requires a cold dormancy because it is that biennial. So approximately 10 to 12 weeks of cooler weather below 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius is sort of what's required. So in our basement, they will get that without freezing, which will be good. So hopefully they do well down there, and then we'll move them out into the greenhouse when it gets a little nicer and see if we can speed up the flowering process. I always go back to this, but it is worthwhile knowing some of this information or looking some of this information up. I'll put a link to, but I've mentioned the Seed Savers Exchange. They have the information about almost every variety of sort of common and some uncommon vegetables as far as how to plant, but also what to think about if you were planning to save seeds. And we just wanted to do this carrot video because carrot requires a little bit of planning if you want to do it, although I would sort of potentially argue it's not a lot of planning. You need to think ahead, but it's not like it's onerous work to do on a small scale. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers sort of what we were hoping to get across, and we're looking forward to this little experiment to see if we can grow our own carrot seeds. Now, each individual carrot flower will produce hundreds of seeds, so if this works, we should have quite a bit to plant from. And one thing we're also going to do for this year, we've got 20 individuals, so they do recommend at least 5, sort of as your bare minimum, so at least 5 roots is kind of what you need. From, I think, 10 to 20 is sort of the recommended if you're going to try to keep it going for a few years, but upwards of 50 different individuals is sort of recommended if you are actually going to keep something viable long term as a variety. So one thing that we're going to do that's going to kind of cheat that a little bit is we have purchased seeds, and we may do this continually. We may kind of purchase seeds every year for a while to sort of get that diversity within the breed without having 50 individuals. So we'll see how that goes. Well, that's pretty much sums up what we were hoping to talk about. And I know my little helper had fun getting her hands dirty and planting
Her favorite vegetable.
Yep, her favorite vegetable in the middle of January on a cold, cold day when it's not nice enough to be outside. So,
it's doing my favorite things, getting dirty and carrots.
well, carrots love dirt. Anyways, hopefully you find this interesting, and if nothing else, it gets you thinking to some things you may be able to do yourself.